At any of your victories this year, has the Star-Spangled Banner been played for any of your podium appearances?
Trying to think. Yeah, I haven't won stage of a Nations Cup yet. Normally they'll play it there. Hopefully at some point this year.
Would you sing along?
I guess so. I don't know. I'm not a great singer, so probably not.
Welcome to the Canadian Cycling Magazine podcast. I'm Matthew Piaro, and with me is Matt Hansen. Welcome, Matt.
Thank you. I'm so excited for today's episode, as always.
As always. And today on Canadian Cycling, we have a U.S. national champion. And it's Independence Day. What? And it's Independence Day as this episode is coming out in the U.S.
Happy birthday, Andrew Randall.
Happy birthday, Andrew Randall? I thought you were going to say United States.
No, I just remember because he's born on July 4th. That's all.
All right. Former pro Canadian Andrew Randall is born on the 4th of July. In this episode, I speak with Ashlyn Berry, who won the National Road Race Championship and Time Trial Championship in the United States. Yet, he has very deep Canadian roots, and we'll find out all about that on this episode. Before my talk with Ashlyn Berry, Matt, let's talk a bit about the Tour de France.
A little bit of a bike race going on.
A little bit of a bike race, and I feel slightly deceived by Derek G and Israel Premier Tech.
How so?
Yes, let me explain. Readers of the magazine, subscribers of the magazine, and also on our website in the members section, you will see in about 2 weeks' time an excellent feature on Derek G. It's written by regular contributor Jake Williams. And in that article, Derek G, we spoke to him well before, or Jake spoke to Derek G well before the Tour de France. And G was musing that if he goes to the Tour, it'll likely be for stages. And then recently, or just before the Tour, Israel Premier Tech put out a release saying, we are going after stages. And at this point in the Tour, as we're speaking, they are not going for stages, at least not with Derek G.
So you feel deceived?
I feel completely deceived.
So you think that some pro is going to tell you his exact strategy, and then you're going to print it up for everyone to see. And that's what you think. So now you feel deceived that he lied to you. That's what you're thinking.
Well, when you put it that way, Matt Hansen, yes, you make a good point. And actually, that's where I was going to go with this. I feel deceived, but they have every right to do that. And it doesn't actually hurt my feelings that they were saying one thing publicly. And you and I, we should talk about all the good reasons. Well, you've sort of already outlined some of them. All the good reasons why maybe you don't tell the press exactly what you are doing before.
I mean, we saw in stage one, Matej Mohoric, he said to the commentators something like, oh, it's too hilly for me to get in a break today. And then cut two, he's in the break. Now, that being said, he did get dropped ultimately, but he definitely tried. And he was in the break. And I think the commentators even said the exact same thing you're saying. Hey, hold on a second. He said he wasn't going to go for the break today. He lied.
Maybe only Tadej Pogačar can say, I'm going to attack on this exact climb, and that's what I'm going to do. And then he does it. For most racers, there's got to be a bit of poker being played. And you don't want to reveal all your cards right away to run with that metaphor.
They should just take their GPS and just pin where they're going to attack so everybody knows. You know, that'd make cycling a lot more exciting. I'm going to go at 10 kilometers to go here, and here, and here. Make it easier for us, too. We don't have to watch 6 hours of the race. We just tune into the good stuff.
Right. I'm sure, again, they're thinking of us.
Mm-hmm.
Another reason that this is a very good strategy for Derek G and Israel Premier Tech is it's sort of similar to what they did with the Dauphiné. They didn't go into the Dauphiné saying, he's the guy going for the general classification. In fact, and subscribers will get some insight into this in the feature, he approached that race at the beginning as a sort of, well, let's see what we can do. And the team was the same way. And that's super valuable in this case because it takes the pressure off. and you just see what you can do. And in his case, in the Dauphiné, stage win, and then he was able to get the yellow jersey, and from there he was able to secure a podium place.
One thing I noticed actually was that, usually, not always, but usually your team leader is going to have the number 1 on your jersey, right? And so he's 135 or something like that. So now, again, that could all be part of this thing where they don't want to put too much pressure on him. But in theory, your GC leader is most likely going to be number 1. And he wasn't. But I have a feeling that's kind of what you're saying. They might think he can, but we don't really know yet because he hasn't done a Grand Tour. So it's kind of like you're saying something, but you're not saying something.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And by not a Grand Tour, you just mean not the Tour de France.
Yes, sorry. The Tour de France, yeah. The grandest of tours.
Exactly.
He has done a Grand Tour,
but
quite well.
He has. He did really well there.
And he's mixing it up. I mean, he's going against obviously the best GC riders in the world right now. And yeah, there are days when he's going to get popped, but it's not like he's getting popped at the start of the climb, right? He's getting popped in good company too.
I was going to say that. You're right. It is in good company. He is surrounded by a bunch of names that cycling fans are familiar with. At the moment, he's not too far from Jai Hindley, Simon Yates. So, those guys at the moment are within, say, shouting distance. But those top, tippity-top guys like Tadej Pogacar, Remco Evenepoel, and Jonas Vingegaard, those guys are just at a whole other level.
Yeah, I should correct myself. Getting popped isn't exactly what is happening to him. He's, getting popped is kind of like, he's not getting dropped. He's just not keeping the pace. So he's still going up consistently. And he's only losing, a minute or two here and there, which is still pretty impressive. When you get popped, you lose 20 minutes.
Exactly. And so I think I will say, Derek G and Israel Premier Tech, I forgive you for deceiving me. Water under the bridge, folks. Let's chat again as things develop with this little old race in France you're doing. However, second point of that I'd like to bring up is please stop referring to Guillaume Boivin as G. I know that was a nickname he had before Derek G joined the team, but when it's an audio clip and we're talking about G having a crash and G doing well on the climbs, please, folks.
How about GB? Oh, that's confusing too now.
No.
And there's also G, the OGG, Geraint Thomas.
Yes, G. This race is brought to you by the letter G. This episode of the Canadian Cycling Magazine podcast is supported by MS Bike. There are MS Bike rides ready for you in Alberta, Saskatchewan, Manitoba, Ontario, Quebec, and Nova Scotia. Depending on which event you sign up for, there's still time to do the MS Bike 8-week training plan or the 4-week plan. You can find both of these on the Canadian Cycling Magazine website. The MS Bike rides are all top-level events. They're fully supported with food, drinks, roadside support, and first aid. It's a great day out, all for a good cause. For your fundraising efforts, you can get some pretty cool kit. There's a link in the show notes that you can check out. Did you know that more than 90,000 Canadians live with MS? You can help. Give your riding some focus and some purpose. Head to msbike.ca. Register and start fundraising. Okay, Matt, let us introduce the featured interview on this episode. It's Ashlyn Barry. Listeners probably recognize that last name. He is the son of Michael Barry and Dee Dee Barry, two accomplished former pros. Also, going back to the another generation, Mike Barry Sr. is Ashlyn's grandfather. And you and I are both familiar with this family. You raced with Michael when you were, juniors?
Yeah, and I've known him since he was probably 14 or 15. His father used to put on lots of races around here, but we raced on a few amateur teams here and there, and we won on maybe one or two national team projects. But yeah, definitely for a while, and then he went on to greater and greater things.
And I know Michael from interviewing him first as a rider, then worked with him as a writer for the magazine on occasion. He's done some stories here. Oh, and with you too. He's done some web stories recently. And I used to meet with Mike Barry Sr. he would give me a tour of some of his vintage components and vintage bikes, and we would work together on stories in the magazine on the retro stuff. And of course, we both know Didi as well. So I actually, though, don't know Ashland super well, so I was very excited to have this conversation with him.
He's a bit of a talent, let's say.
Well, he has been on our radar since he was, let's say, I think 10. And what caught our eye then is he was doing these huge rides in the Don Valley with some friends. This was the peak of the early pandemic, and they were just going out, and they would do like 100 kilometers. For once, they did 100 kilometers, maybe more than once. And we wrote about that on the website. And then he wins Hell of the North at 14. So, it's hard to be in the cycling community here in Toronto and not see Ashland's pretty spectacular results out there.
I think what's interesting about him too is that, he's obviously talented with his own age group, but he also mixes it up with grown-ups, right? And in a funny way, it reminds me a lot of his father, because when I was a kid, juniors, you would sometimes get permission to ride Cat 1 or whatever you want to call it, elite races, Pro 1, 2, whatever it's called. And if you're a junior and if you finish like in the pack in a senior 1-2 race, you're like, wow, this is amazing. Like, wow, I'm 50th, but wow, look at me. I'm 16 racing with the big boys. Whereas Michael would do those races and lap the field and win. And it's just like Ashland, like he's doing these races with, grown-ups, and he's killing them.
Truly a racing phenomenon. And he is also, as I mentioned off the top, a junior U.S. national champion.
We should point out he almost won the crit too.
He was second in the crit, yeah. So we actually get into that. How is it that this Toronto boy is wearing the stars and stripes? And what might lie ahead also for this very talented bike rider? So with that, here is my interview with Ashland Berry. Ashland Berry, Junior U.S. Time Trial and Road Race Champion. Welcome to the Canadian Cycling Magazine podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Where are you right now?
I'm in Girona right now. Girona, Spain, training.
So you're training, but I understand you've also popped into Belgium recently to do some testing. Can you tell me more about that?
Yeah, I was just doing a little bit of aero testing before the World Championships, just working on dialing in position, equipment, stuff like that. So yeah, I just made a short trip over.
Now, were you on the time trial bike for this testing?
Yeah, time trial bike. I'm hoping that some of the stuff that I found there will also carry over my position on the track. It'll all help for track and road worlds later in the season.
Now, what's it like being you're in a wind tunnel? What's that? Yeah, what's the sensation like? Is it kind of intimidating? How did it feel?
Kind of cold, to be honest. Wasn't the most comfortable. Yeah, they're kind of like each run is 2 or 3 minutes, and they do a bunch of them. And then the wind speed's like 60 km an hour or something. So it's all this wind just straight in your face, and you're just kind of sitting there trying not to shiver.
And so you're just in your skin suit, right? So the 60 kilometer per hour wind is, pretty cold, I imagine.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like being in a big fan.
Now you're in Girona, and you were, in fact, born in Girona. That's correct?
Yeah, my parents lived here for 12 years, I think, something like that. And then they moved when I was 6 years old. So a couple years after I had started school here.
Do you have some memories of being in Girona at 5, 6?
Yeah, I have a lot of good memories, actually. More of like people than places, but it's always nice coming back and visiting and kind of seeing people from when I was younger.
Your family moved to Toronto. I think that was about 2012, roughly, maybe 2013. And you've been based mostly in Toronto since then. That's correct?
Yeah, based mostly in Toronto. My dad my dad retired in 2012, and then my family moved back. So my grandma was diagnosed with cancer at the same time, who lived there. So yeah, and we've been living there since.
So you're 16 and you still have a bit more high school left in Toronto?
Yeah, I have 1 year left.
And what's it been like balancing racing and school?
It's been definitely a busy past couple years, especially this last year. I've been traveling a lot more and racing more in Europe. And then obviously, the older I get, kind of the more the training ramps up. So it's been pretty full on balancing school and my training, racing, and all that. But they've been supportive with me, and like my teachers have helped me a lot to stay on track with stuff, which has been good.
Cycling is very much a part of your family. We mentioned your parents were living in Girona. That's largely because of their cycling careers. Your grandfather, Mike Barry Sr., was passionate about bikes. He started Mariposa, a brand which your parents run today. His influence in cycling in Ontario is huge. He made many passionate riders out of folks in this province. And your father, Michael, raced at the top levels of the sport on the road. And your mother, Dee Dee, has many cycling successes, including silver in the time trial at the 2004 Olympics. How did you view cycling as you grew up surrounded by it?
I don't know. It's kind of a difficult question. I never really thought about it too much. It kind of just felt normal to me. I always just spent time on the bike for fun and would go out with my dad kind of towards the end of his career when I learned to ride a bike. And then I think I was interested in trying racing when I was 8 or 9 years old, maybe. I asked my parents if I could do it. And then they were like, yeah, if you want to. And then I started with cross for maybe a year or two just for fun. And yeah, it was like a good place for me to start. I could just go out, ride with my friends or my mom or my dad, kind of always learning new stuff and skills. And then I got into the mountain biking because I wanted something to do like not in the fall and winter. And I was doing mountain biking and cross. And then kind of at the start of the pandemic, I started riding on the track more and the road as well. And then I made that transition over, and now I pretty much just do track and road. But yeah, growing up, I was kind of always surrounded by the sport. And I think it was good because it meant I could learn a lot from my parents. And I think it's really helped me progress. I've never really felt pressure from them necessarily to pursue cycling or pursue sports in general. They always kind of just gave me freedom to do what I wanted when I was young.
No, and I guess it never really felt like it was your parents' thing. It was just a thing or that was always around.
Yeah, I guess so. Like after my dad retired, I don't know, him and my mom didn't really ride bikes a ton, just with me on the weekends and stuff. And they did a lot of running and skiing and things like that. And so for me, I kind of just did everything. Like I played hockey when I was younger and soccer, and then would like go out with my parents and ski and run. And so like for me, cycling was just another activity that I like doing. And then when I started racing, I realized I really liked it. And then yeah, I just got more and more into it.
Now, some of your accomplishments, I guess this is about the time that you were maybe just on the cusp of racing. I remember in June 2020, you and I think 4 other friends rode 100 kilometers in Toronto's Don Valley. Like, that's a big ride. I think you were, what, 12 at the time?
Yeah, 13 maybe, something like that.
Now, what inspired you to cover that much mileage on mountain bike trails?
Kind of during COVID, it was back before I started really riding on the road or track that much. And with the pandemic, mountain biking was just an easy thing for me to go out and do with my friends, especially with online school. Like I'd be sitting inside all day and I just want to get out. And so I was for 3 months or so just mountain biking every day with my friends. And then one of them had the idea to do 100K in the dawn as a challenge. And yeah, I was up for it. We just went out and did it.
How did you feel after? Can you remember how you felt after 100 clicks in the dawn?
It's definitely tired and hungry. It was surprisingly, I I felt like the riding wasn't that hard. It took a long time, like maybe 5, 6 hours or something, just because the trails are so slow. But all the trails in the dawn are super technical as well. So my arms and back or everything were just like totally messed up for a few days, but yeah, I didn't feel great.
Yet you enjoyed it, I think.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. It was a lot of fun.
In 2022, at the age of 14, you won a local Toronto race called Hell of the North. It was started by your grandfather, Mike Barry Sr. What was it like to win that race?
It was pretty special for me, especially because I had just started racing like road and doing some gravel stuff. I was pretty surprised that I was able to win that. And yeah, as you said, having my grandpa starting the race like 30 years ago, or I don't even know when, but yeah, it was pretty cool to do that, especially because the race goes on a lot of the roads that I train at home. So it was a nice feeling for sure.
Now, you mentioned racing the track. When did that come into play? I think you said it was around 2021, I think coming out of the pandemic or still in the midst of it a bit.
Yeah, got certified on the track the start of 2020, I think, and did one race, and then kind of forgot about it for like a year or two. And then, yeah, in the fall, I think I did nationals and a bunch of other races. And from then, I've just raced all winter the last 2 or 3 years on the track. And yeah, I've been super fortunate to have that to progress my skills and training, and being able to race every weekend has been super important for me. And the coaches at the track have been super good. So I learned really quickly and I was able to progress fast, even though I maybe didn't start like as as young as I did on the mountain bike or road bike or whatever.
Now, I should mention this is the Velodrome in Milton, Ontario, and I believe in April 2022 you set a Canadian record in the under 17 2 kilometer pursuit. Does that record still stand?
I think so. I think Dylan Bibick actually went faster at the provincials, and for some reason it wasn't official. I don't know. I'm not sure if it still stands. I think maybe Jake McLean might have taken it, but yeah, I was really happy with that time as a first year setting it.
There are definitely a bunch of fast folks on that track, young fast folks, I should say, on that track.
Yeah, there's been a lot of super fast guys coming up, and I think yeah, it just comes back to the coaching there and the programs that have been put in place, like Carson, Dylan, Michael Leonard. There's been a lot of super fast guys that have come out of there.
Yep. Carson Matern, Dylan Bibick, and as you mentioned, Michael Leonard, who is racing for Ineos right now. You mentioned that the track helped you progress. Now, do you see track as something that assists your road racing? Is road the priority, or do you try to keep them in balance?
I've kept them pretty balanced. Being in Toronto, it kind of gives me something to do in the winter to focus on. And yeah, the skills that I've learned on the track, I think have really carried over. It's helped a lot with my speed on the road. And then also just the ability to make decisions and figure out what's going on in the races quickly and learn how to win more, basically. But yeah, the track's been super good. And I think I want to continue to share my goals on the track and road, and balance both.
Another discipline that you ride is gravel. In mid-June, you won the Blue Mountains Gravel Fondo, which is held just north of Toronto. That is a qualifier for the Gravel World Championships, but as I understand, not for you. Can you explain that?
Yeah. So I won the overall at the Blue Mountain gravel race, and I think for under 18s you can't or not under. I don't know if it's under 18 or 19, but because of my age, I couldn't qualify for the Gravel World Championships. I would have otherwise. I'm not really sure why the rules are that way, but
How do you feel about that?
um, I'm not. I mean, I was kind of disappointed, but I have a lot of other really big goals this season. So, yeah, it is kind of unfortunate, but I think I mean, I understand why they do it for safety and stuff, just because having juniors mixed with elites doesn't always work the best. And at the World Championships, it's a whole nother step up. So,
Ashlyn, you race for EF Education Onto. and this is your second year on the team. However, this year you are racing with a U.S. license. You are a dual citizen because your mom is from Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and your dad is from Toronto. Can you tell me how you came to the decision to race with a U.S. license?
Yeah, so as you mentioned, my mom is American, my dad's Canadian, and I was born and lived in Girona and then moved to Toronto later. And my family is sort of lived all over, and most of my family now is living in the US, and I kind of feel at home there. And yeah, my mom in the past had a super great experience with the national team, and they've been super supportive of me and my racing. And I'm super happy with how the year has gone so far, with the races that I've been able to do with them and the support that I've had.
Now, was it an easy decision or a tough decision to choose nationalities like that?
It was sort of difficult. Yeah. Yeah, like I said, I think there is I sort of feel at home in the US, and like a lot of my family is there. And it's sort of, yeah, I kind of have like a mixed identity with being born and living in Spain for a long time and then having family in both places and kind of all over. Um, but yeah, I think I'm happy with the decision for sure. And like I said, I've had super great support, so I've been really happy.
And you've had a lot of successes this year, especially at the ripe old age of 16, and you seem to be on track to become a professional. Both your parents, as we've mentioned, were both pros. Have they spoken to you about the pressures and tough decisions you might face in the years ahead?
Definitely. Yeah. I think I'm really privileged to have two parents who are both professional athletes. And yeah, they've definitely helped me a lot and guided me with some of the more difficult things in the sport. And yeah, it's been great for me to have that, and always have people that I can talk to that understand kind of what's happening or what I might be going through. And yeah, it's been super important for me.
As I mentioned, your team is EF Education Onto. It's a junior development team based in the US, and I'm sure listeners will recognize the main sponsor, EF Education. Is there a connection between your team and the world team, EF Education Easy Post?
Yeah, there is a connection. So our team's sponsored by EF. It's not fully integrated with a professional team. So before being sponsored by EF, it was Onto, and then before that it was a Hincapi development team. And then sort of how the sponsorship came about is Lux, another big junior team in the US, folded a couple of years ago. And EF, or the owners of EF, wanted to put money into junior cycling in America to give a place for talented American riders to develop. And so that's how they ended up funding our program. And I mean, since I've been on the team, it's been super great. I've had a lot of really good opportunities to race in the US and internationally as well. But yeah, as of right now, it's not fully integrated with the World Tour team, but there is some affiliation there, and they are the main sponsor of the team.
Have you chatted with Jonathan Vaughters yet?
Uh, yeah. Well, I have chatted with him, not in person, but yeah, definitely exchanged messages and stuff.
Now, how did you come to that team?
So I guest rode with them in 2022, it would have been, at Green Mountain as an under 17. And I had a super great experience then. And it was going into that year that EF was sponsoring the team, and they're getting bikes from Cannondale, and there's sort of bigger sponsors coming into play. And it was already a team that I was sort of looking at going to. And then with all that coming together, it was a pretty easy decision for me to make. And yeah, I've been on the team since then.
Who is Rusty Miller?
Rusty's the director of EF Onto. So he pretty much organizes all the logistics around our racing and directs races, coaches riders at races, takes care of all that stuff.
Has he ever made you play the drums?
He has not, no, not yet.
Not yet, but you know why I'm asking that question, right?
Yeah.
For listeners who may not have seen it, there is a video out on YouTube about the team, and it seemed to be like a team building exercise. Rusty Miller sat four members of the team down to get them to jam, I believe.
Yeah.
Anyway, there could be some drumming in your future.
Yeah, most likely.
And what's it like working with Rusty?
Yeah, during the time I've been on the team, he's been super great. He's really good with sort of the psychological side of the sport. And I think that's super important for working with young riders, especially when they might have a lot of different things going on in their life at the same time. I mean, since I've been on the team, he's been great in that sense in helping me, and I've seen him help a lot of other young riders to succeed at a high level. And yeah, I think he's a good coach, good director. My experience has been great so far.
What are your strengths as a rider?
I'm still kind of figuring it out. I think I'm super well-rounded. I've shown that in a lot of the races this year, in Europe especially. I like doing everything, and I want to be good at everything. Maybe like super long climbs are sort of my weaker point. I think time will tell with that as I continue to develop. Yeah, I like sprinting. I like time trials. I like kind of like classic style races, really hard races. So I'm just doing everything now and figuring it out as I go.
On the road this year, you've had some pretty significant results. There was the overall win at the Tour du Bocage. You were also 7th at Paris-Roubaix Juniors. And, of course, there is 2 U.S. championship titles, one in the road race and one in the time trial. Which of these stands out, or maybe it's another race, but which race really stands out for you so far this year?
Yeah, it'd be pretty hard to pick one. I think they've all been super important, super special for me. Bocage was the first junior race, first UCI race I did in Europe as well. So to win that immediately, like especially early in the year, was super special for me and has given me a lot of motivation for kind of the next races in the year. And then Roubaix, it was my first time doing that racing on the cobbles. So that was definitely an experience. And I was really happy with my result there and with how the race played out and how strong I was. That's something I'm really looking forward to coming back to next year. And then, yeah, with nationals, it couldn't have really gone better. Yeah, I was super happy with how everything went, and especially that I qualified for the World Championships for the road race and the time trial. So that was really exciting. And I mean, all my results this year I've been really happy with for the most part.
But those cobbles at Roubaix, those are horrible, aren't they?
It's not so bad when you're racing. It's more after, I found. Yeah. When you're in the race, like you're in the moment, and it's pretty hard anyways when you're racing. But after, yeah, I was super sore. And the recon wasn't nice.
Interesting. So the recon might have felt a bit rougher than the actual race itself.
Yeah. I feel like in the race, you're just so in the zone. And especially in the last 10K, there were so many fans. So I was just like in the moment. Yeah. I didn't really feel it till after, but
You had fans at the junior race at Paris-Roubaix. I don't feel like there's fewer fans here in North America at junior races, aren't there?
yeah, definitely. It was nice for Roubaix actually, because the under 23s and the pros came through, I think like an hour or two later. So most of the fans were already there, especially in the last 5 or 10K in those last couple cobble sections. So going through there was like a wall of sound. I was by myself at that point in the race, so it was pretty motivating and cool to see all the people watching the race.
At any of your victories this year, has the Star Spangled Banner been played for any of your podium appearances?
Yeah, I guess they would have played at nationals. I trying to think. Yeah, I haven't won Stage of a Nations Cup yet. Normally they'll play it there. hopefully at some point this year.
Maybe some point this year. Yeah. Would you sing along?
I guess so. I don't know. I'm not a great singer, so probably not. I feel like it'd be pretty disrespectful if I did.
Because of the voice alone.
Yeah.
Ashlyn, is racing fun?
Yeah, I love racing.
What parts are the most fun?
I don't know. I like everything, honestly. Probably the ends of races. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I just have a lot of fun. Like it's nice because everything's sort of different in cycling. So it never really feels like I'm doing the same thing, except for on the track sometimes. But I like just always being able to do like different finishes of races, and you never know what's gonna happen. So it's always exciting.
Is there anything that seems like work? That seems like a grind?
Not really, no. Sometimes like sitting on the trainer in the middle of winter, but it's always nice kind of like knowing that you'll be fitter for the next races. So I always just try to enjoy it and try to see the positives and everything. Like even if I might not enjoy sitting on the trainer in the middle of January, I know it's going to make me fitter. And I know like I'm in a pretty nice position to be able to spend that time training and to have the opportunities to do the races that I'm doing. So I'm really happy with where I am in the sport now.
So as we mentioned earlier, you're in Girona, and actually right now your father, Michael, is with you. How does he help you with your racing, whether it's prep or is it logistics, or how does he have a hand, or does he have much of a hand in your racing?
I think since I've been young, he's always kind of tried to leave things more up to me and then maybe just point stuff out if I go wrong. So that was super nice when I was young, just to sort of have that guidance when I was learning and to have the freedom to make mistakes and sort of see the mistakes for myself as opposed to just having him like tell me what to do and then doing everything perfectly. Definitely now less than he did in the past, but yeah, when I was young, it really helped me to learn a lot and progress.
Yeah, Michael doesn't sound like a hockey dad, quote unquote hockey dad. It sounds like you've got the space to, figure stuff out.
Yeah, yeah. Thankfully, he's not a hockey dad.
Um, when did you get your first power meter?
Gotta think back. I guess on the track. On the track, I had one for a while before on the road, maybe end of 2021. Then on the road, halfway through 2022, end of 2022, something like that.
So around the ages of 13, 14, I think?
Yeah, exactly. I think I had a power meter on my trainer before that, but I didn't ride the trainer that much, so I didn't pay a ton of attention to it.
Have you ever compared power numbers with your parents?
I'm logged into my dad's old Training Peaks, but it has like a random mix of files. I think he's got like maybe 2 years of training on there, but like half the files are corrupted and like it says he did like 3,000 watts or I don't know. It's all got random stuff in it, but yeah, I have some of my dad's power numbers on there.
That's funny. Yeah, I guess we'll throw away that 3,000 watts. I mean, I think that's a glitch. That sounds glitchy to me. But yeah, how do they compare? Or do you really look closely at what your dad used to do?
I don't look super close. Like I said, he's lost a ton of the data. Yeah, I think I'm a bit bigger than my dad, so my absolute numbers I think are probably all higher. Definitely my sprint numbers. My dad was not a sprinter, so
Now, what do you feel is the most important aspect for an ambitious young rider? I'm going to give you four options. Maybe there's another option I'm missing, but to ambitious young riders out there, are power files important? Are race results more important? Or networking? Or maybe even just luck? Which of these is maybe something an aspiring young rider should think about?
definitely learning and race results. I think the power will come and luck you can't really control, so you just have to control what you can. And yeah, I think there's a lot of riders that focus too much on the power maybe and just having really good watts per kilo, but they lose sight of what it takes to actually win a race. Like, yeah, I don't want to have super good power numbers to have super good power numbers. I want to have super good power numbers so that I can win more races. You kind of have to look at what the ultimate goal is. And there's a lot of different factors that help you to win races. I think the ability to read a race is really important and make decisions and have good technical skills. And I think as a younger rider, those are the most important things to develop, because once you learn that, you never really lose it. And you can always build more experience in the future.
What are races or events that really capture your imagination? Like, in your mind, what are the coolest? Is it Paris-Roubaix? Is it the Tour de France? Is it the Olympics or something else? What do you think? Oh, okay, this is a race that I think is pretty awesome.
I mean, I could say all of those races, really. I think the cool thing about bike racing is that every race is unique and gives different challenges and opportunities as well. But in terms of like what really inspires me as a rider, I would say probably more the one-day races like Tour of Flanders, Paris-Roubaix, World Championships, Milan-San Remo, Olympics, stuff like that.
You gave us a bit of an idea of what's ahead of you for this season, especially with your U.S. Nationals wins, but we're speaking in early July. This episode is coming out on Independence Day, which is quite appropriate for a U.S. national champion. But what is ahead for you this season?
So right now I'm training in Spain, and on Friday I'm going to be going to France for a stage race, Val-Romé. That'll be 5 days. I'll do that with EF, and then I'm doing a race in the Netherlands, like Limburg area. Well, Belgium, Netherlands. So that's a Nations Cup. I'll do that with the national team. And then after that, I'll head home for 2 weeks, I think. And then I'll start the pre-track worlds camp. And then I will most likely be going to track worlds in China in mid-August, I think. And after that, I'm just fully focused on preparing for road worlds. I might do a couple races in between, but yeah. Road worlds will be at the end of September in Zurich, Switzerland.
It looks like a lumpy course in Zurich.
Yeah, it looks hard. Yeah. The time trial was good, but road race looks hard for sure.
All right, Ashlyn. Well, thank you so much for your time, and good luck with the remaining races this season and beyond.
Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate you having me on.
And that's the episode. It is written and edited by me, Matthew Pioro. I had help from Matt Hansen. Thank you, Matt.
You're welcome.
I also had help from Terry McCall. This episode of the Canadian Cycling Magazine podcast is produced by Adam Killick. He also does the music.
He also does the oh.
Wow, you're bringing that one back, eh?
I'm on delay, yeah.
Yeah, excellent timing.
Yeah, timing is everything.
Amazing. Wow, I'm glad we could workshop these jokes. I'm sure our listeners totally appreciate that. Also, thank you to Ontario Creates for its support. So, Matt, as the weekend is approaching, my dilemma is what bike to ride.
Oh, look at you.
I have three right now that I have to ride. Two of them I think are an eye-watering more than $20,000 in price.
Oh, bargain.
Yeah, really. Actually, they terrify me. I don't want to even get a rock to chip the paint on these things. I find it a little stressful, these super bikes.
Is that why I'm not allowed to ride them? Because I will ride the hell out of those things.
Yeah, these are not rented mules. These are very, very fine racing bikes. So yeah, it's like I've got too many bikes littering the place that I have to pick which one to ride. It's difficult.
There's some real Prosecco problems.
It really is. That is the sound of zero sympathy coming through from anywhere. I hope the weather holds this weekend. I got some bikes to ride, and I'm really looking forward to that. So, hey, maybe I'll see you out there, bud.
Sure, bud.
Okay. All right. Let's see if we can sync up our schedules maybe for a second time this year. This will be unprecedented.
Oh, that'd be fun.
All right, everybody. Thank you for listening. Please tell a friend about the show. Get them to subscribe. It means a lot to us. Rate and review the show. Have a good ride, everyone. If you're out riding this weekend, ride safely, and we'll talk to you later.